this perhaps isn't the best example, but this is an example. When they raise, you just call them down and give them 100 big blinds if they manage to check aces. But when they raise
okay.
eight out of 10 times, this is called the BSTI, the bet small to induce. 8 out of 10 times they just got ace king, they just go mental.
It's happening again. The feedback was great. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Dr. Exploit, back here today, and we are going to continue with part 2. Charlie, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time once again for our community.
Yeah, I must say I was surprised at. I watched the comments pretty carefully because it's a new type of content, and I always like to keep my finger to the wind to see what people are kind of yankering for these days. And I was surprised. Yankering, yeah, it's not even slightly a word. Yeah, I was surprised how much people really liked the concepts, and it was really interesting because even though you and I approach, I think the cognitive side of like forming a thought process in poker really similarly, obviously the results are still drastically different.
Yeah.
At least in this format. So it was really interesting for me to see how people reacted to that. And as I said to you before the call, I think it's helpful for people to be able to see people like us that are humble enough to say that we really don't know what the correct answers are in a bunch of spots.
Yeah.
Because as, again, we said before, when you have people that are just telling you this is the answer, Pierre Solver says this is the answer. If you do this, you're bad. If you do this, you're bad. Anything else apart from this is bad. And I'm really good because I know the answer. That kind of mentality that is really proliferated throughout the poker community can be so disheartening to people that don't know all this stuff to do a Pierre Solver, or they're not winning and they don't know why. And I think it's nice for people to be able to see your humility, for instance, where you can say, hey, I might be wrong. Like, who the fuck knows? Like,
yeah. I think we both heavily agree on that. Then I would say let's yanker into the hand review.
Do it. It's been long enough now that I've probably forgotten partial parts of my thought process.
We will see. So we were at hand 54. I'm going through. We fold a bunch of hands. Queen 10 off. The next interesting hand, Queen Jack off on the cutoff. I think there's nothing too much. Would you have called a 3-bet from the blinds with Queen Jack off here?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would have. What would be the? That
would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What would be the worst offsuited Broadway hand or ace-x hands you would call against a 3-bet?
So let's say we go 44. Big blind goes 17K, 18K.
Yeah, or small blind. Which 3-bet range do you give more credit? The small blind 3-bet range or the big blind 3-bet range?
So it used to be that I would give the big blind 3-bet range loads and loads and loads of credit. I would still do that as a kind of exploit versus the fields.
Yeah.
But if it's a regular, then I'll give the small blinds slightly less credit than the big blind, but it's getting a lot closer.
Yeah.
I think at the moment the fields, as far as I can tell, are 3-betting pretty polar from the big blind and pretty linear from the small blinds.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think there was a time once you faced a 3-bet, you would have folded everything but aces. Versus the big blind, it was just absolutely insanely nutted.
Yeah, you're sitting there with the ace queen suited, you're like, fuck my life. Why?
Yeah. But in these days, a lot of regulars and also good regulars exploit the fact that it looks really strong and just overdoing it. So it's like very important to keep an eye on who are the guys. There's some smart players, right? They always do the reverse. When something appears to be strong, they overdo it. But of course, I would still say that the majority are, like for example, not taking those Jack 8 suited, 10 8 suited, and whatever you're supposed to be bluff 3-betting here. And then when it gets to shorter stack size, you know, all the Queen 6 off kind of stuff, at least GTO. All right, a couple more folds, 10-4, 9-4, 8 deuce, Queen 10, and the big blind.
All right, so we're on hand 63. Guys at home, we're clicking through this in a different format. We're clicking through it together.
Yes. So Danos limps. I haven't checked out what you're doing yet. I'm really interested in hearing your thought. If you would consider ISO raising this, what would be the type of hands you would be ISO raising here?
Yeah, I think with Queen 10, and I hate to use the word mix because mix really isn't a strategy that I would use, but
Mm-hmm.
I would sometimes raise and sometimes check depending on the player or just depending on the table or depending on how it is felt. I kind of
Yeah.
randomize it based on my wins.
Yeah.
Queen 10's that kind of one where it's such a good hand that you want to be raising it, but it's not quite good enough to be able to happily call a 3-bet.
Yeah.
Especially if people aren't raising a wide enough range as a bluff blind versus blinds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would do the same. I wish I would be raising it more because when you think about it, it's just so easy in game. Maybe you have a lot of tables. You're like, let's check, let's keep the pot small. But I just think it's such a powerful raise, especially those strong Jack X and 10X hands where if you think about small blind slim calling range, you just have it crushed, right? Like 10-6 suited, 10-9 off, 10-8 off, suited 10X, suited Queen X, and you just have to, even you had like 9-8, like you're performing incredible well against. So, and also you folded some like king 4 offs and kind of stuff, so you start folding out some better hands. And yeah, and it would be an easy raise fold if your opponent 3-bet. So I wish I would be raising those more, like the Jack 10 offs and Queen 10 offs in this spot, but I definitely see
I
myself.
wish I was raising less.
Yeah, maybe you're raising it already so often, but I feel like
my automatic reaction here is to raise probably 95% of the time, I think. And
yeah, but I think it's good. I think it's really good against population.
Yeah, I think it is against most people, but against good regs, I think that they start getting hands on you real quick in these spots. So I try and be a bit more calm with kind of piling on.
Yeah. 8 do 6.
Right, I check apparently.
Okay. Flop 8 do 6. You bet.
Yeah, I think that the way that because this thing doesn't show me whether it's a reg or a recreation player, I'll assume it's a reg.
Yeah, Danos I think is a regular.
Oh, I don't have their names.
You don't have the names?
No.
But yeah, I can tell you.
Okay, so it's a reg. I'm pretty sure I recognize that name. So I think enough regs are just check folding hands on this board's enough because it just smashes our range in comparison to his. We have all the 8-2 off, all the 6-2 off, etc. So I think that stabbing here with a bunch of backdoors and overcards is just going to be profitable enough.
Yeah,
for sure. If we check back, we just get bluffed off our hand a lot.
Yeah, I really like this step, especially what you said at the end that when there's the 4 of clubs on the turn and he steps his queen 3, we can't really do anything, and a lot of turns he's going to be making backdoor hands or like a gut shot hand that can continue. And it's a good board for us because we have a lot of these 8 deuce, deuce 6, like even 3-4, 3-5. Like we have a lot of high equity hands, and I think with the queen 10s here, 10-9s anyway, start trying to apply pressure onto a side king. I think, and this is probably, it comes really natural to you, but we also have a lot of beginners. When you bet, you always want to ask yourself, am I targeting better hands? Am I getting better hands to fold? And do I still have good playability on later streets? This is always a good indicator whether you can bet it or not. So for example, if you have ace-9 here, no matter what the turn is, unless let's say you checked it back, you can always call a turn bet, right? Like, exactly. And you're not really making them for that better hands. Or if you have ace-10 here, or if you have something like maybe pocket 4s, it's just so much better to play it as a check back. Like a bet wouldn't be terrible, but like as you said, if you would always bet everything here, it gets very easy that maybe people see it in their heart that you have a very high stabbing stat, and you make yourself also. These are the hands you don't want to build a pot, right? You want to keep the pot small. Maybe you want to play 2 streets or just 1 street facing a bet. And when you start betting the flop, you basically open up the possibility that it's going to be a 3 street game. And this is where you just leverage your positional advantage. And I really like this thought process, and especially for beginners, it's so underestimated. I see it in Discord very often in our community, and people post hands and then they make a random bet and they're like, yeah, I just want to end the hand. You know, that typical, I don't know what to do, so that's why I bet. This is not that's not a very rational thought process. Just always ask yourself, okay, what weaker hands are calling, or if it's a bluff bet, what better hands are folding. And with queen high here, of course you shouldn't be betting every queen high, should be a little bit more careful, but I think queen 10 here is also queen 4, queen 5, and I'm pretty sure that the solver really likes betting all of these, but just a mix. You know, it's like you don't want to be overdoing it, but especially queen 7, queen 5, queen 9, where you have a lot of backdoor as well. So yeah, very well. Yeah.
Something I'd recommend for more beginner players to be thinking, and even some more intermediate and high players as well, is to really crack down on your thought process in these kind of situations, because it's very easy for somebody to have a really messy thought process here. Mm-hmm. And we're saying lots of things like now that I obviously they wouldn't all go through our mind at the time. We just kind of intuitively know that it's a bet. But I think that for me personally, and I'm sure it is partially for you at least, when I'm betting here, the first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, what is my opponent's range and what do I do about that?
Yeah.
So I know that his range is going to be some check folds, like some queen threes. His range is going to be some check calls, like some ace highs and some highs, like king queen, king jack, king 10. And then he's probably also going to be check calling his deuce x, 6x, and some 8x potentially as well. So then my second thought would be like, okay, what am I going to do about that? And it would be like, okay, there's a ton of ace-x combos in there. So what I really want to do is make sure that ace-x is going to be folding by the river, if I can do that. I think that the turn being an 8 here is very difficult for me to now to start making ace-highs fold, unless I really want to take like a huge punt out of lines, like fucking overbet in the turn or something, which I don't, because I think people really would call down pretty light here. But let's say the turn is even, let's say, what's a more reasonable turn to barrel? Maybe like a king, something like that. I would still be betting the turn, still betting with my 8x, 6x as well, and making sure that he folds his ace 9 off, because there's so many combos of ace 3, ace 4, ace 5, ace 7, ace 9, ace 10 off.
You're blocking queen as well, and king 10, those kind of floats, if you have these two cards in your range as well.
So I think, for the beginner players out there, really think through their ranges. Think how many combos are in different parts of their ranges, because that's the main bread and butter of how you play poker. It's like, what is their range and what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, and especially when there's an 8, a 6, a deuce already out there, it makes it more likely that he has an ace 9 than he has an ace 6 hand that he can potentially call down 3 streets. So his ace high hands will always outweigh the paired hands or his like semi traps. That's face a call or interesting turn. Okay. I struggle with this. What's your approach on the turn?
So in a lot of spots, I would overbluff these kind of turns, because I think that, say we're like button versus big blinds and they've check called the flop, then we can barrel really profitably. Everyone's just going to fold all their ace highs, and we're just going to print no matter what we're betting pretty much until they start readjusting. Blind versus blinds, I think this is where people will start calling down a lot of their ace highs, even if we went 80% pot here. So personally, I'd be really, really under bluffing this, and I'd be betting all of my deuce x, all of my 6x, all of my 8x, and then some higher equity bluffs. I might turn into like a 2x pot bluff or something like that. So like 9-7, 5-4-5, something like that. I might turn into a 2x pot bluff, and then 6x, deuce x, and 8x. I'll probably bet like 75%, assuming people are just going to be calling down way too wide with ace high.
Yeah, I like it. I wouldn't necessarily like under bluffing a lot, but I agree with you. I feel like that people. By the way, I sent you a screenshot on IG with the names on the table, so
nice.
In case you remember some specific reads. I feel like just blind versus blind people. It's blind versus blind, and then probably also your image. You know, it's Charlie Carrel. He's gonna find all these crazy bluffs. Like
Man,
for
I played live poker the other day, and I almost got called down in like a 800 big blind pot with fucking ace high. And I said too bad. The guy was tanking on the river. I was like, oh my god, is he considering folding aces against me? And he's sitting there fucking ace high in a ludicrous spot. And I was like, my image. I love this. This is
yeah,
nice.
yeah. That definitely helps as well. So you check it back. Turn river is a 7. Now it goes check. What's
You bluff him.
Yeah, I mean, perceived, we don't have. We can probably value bet any 6, any 7. I don't know.
How much 6 and 7x do you think that he would expect us to have after checking the turn?
Okay, so this is where I try to avoid this kind of level thinking, because on one side he could think, oh, the 7, his 7-9s improved, that he stopped bluffing on the turn, because the 8 reduces our value combos, which means we also have to slow down with our bluffs. So we have less 8x in our range. So we also have to start checking back hands like 5-7, 7-9, 10-9. Like we can't bluff them 100% of the time. So, and we probably want to bluff with like 3-5 or 4-5 on the turn, where we really just make him fold the queen 7s that didn't improve, where we really unblock those ace, king 7, king 9 type of hands that check call the flop and then check for the turn. So I will have a lot of 7x in my range, and I will have a lot of 6x in my range, and a few traps, and I still have and I would value bet all of those, and then my most natural bluffs come from my queen 10s, jack 10s, and that's probably it.
So, two things. First of all, I think that what's more important than what you actually have in your range is what they think you have in your range.
Yeah.
And second of all, I do think we just have a ton of bluffs when we get to the river. Like here, we have a bunch of just like 10-3s, jack 3s, 10-4s, etc. I would imagine it's very easy to overbluff in this spot.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Have a ton of value hands.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how wide we're betting those 10-3, 10-4 suited type of hands. So naturally, the way I would approach this spot, I would probably also have some queen 4 spades type of hands, right? Or jack 4, jack 5 with a little bit of backdoor equity. So we should probably start picking those, and unblocking more high card hands, like, because we block king queen, we block king 10, we block a bunch of the hands that we're trying to target, right? So yeah, I agree with you. So maybe we start taking those, and then depending if we feel like we can overbluff this spot, take more from the queen 10. This is probably a spot I like to just fire the pot bet and see if I get those ace high king high calls.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
And then just learn from it, right?
In most spots, I usually do that as well. But every now and again, I just get a feeling. You just get a feeling. It's like people are just cool here. Like I don't know what it is against me in this spot and this board. You just have to listen to that little voice in the back of your head.
Yeah.
I think that the first few years of a poker player's career should be not really listening to the voice in the back of your head and just fucking going for it.
Yeah.
And like seeing what happens, and then learning when you can listen to it and when it's just talking shit. But so yeah, personally, you'll see me doing a lot of really fucking weird plays, just because that little intuition in my mind is like, I'm pretty sure someone's just gonna call me.
Yeah, there's also, remember that I also work a lot with Matt Staples, and he also recently, I'm not going to share what he said, because this would be maybe a little would be quite mean towards him to reveal what we work on or what he was sharing with me. But it was also a spot. It's like, Ben, I was trying this out and it kind of works. It's like when you find something that works in a certain spot, that then you can really start printing. You can do it like 10, 12, 15 times, and you print a lot of EV. And then if you do a spot, you do it 2, 3, 4 times, and you realize, okay, my God, people are not folding. Okay, you stop doing it, and then you can make the readjustment and even go thinner for value. If you get these ISI hero cards, king high hero cards here, then just value bet your king deuce. It's like you're just gonna go. You can still make exploits when you fuck it up afterwards, or let's say not fuck it up, but you yeah, you have a wrong perception of your opponents. You think it might be a good spot to bluff, but they prove you wrong, and then okay, then you do the opposite. You just stop bluffing. And this is really, I find it really, really weird when people play live and get these messages a lot. Yeah, Ben, people don't fold in live games. They don't fold to my open raises. I always play multi-way with my aces and kings. Well, then do the opposite. Start raising like 5-6 big blinds with your aces and kings. People don't care. They sit there, they have a beer, you know, like they want to have a good time, and stop bluffing them.
Yeah,
And it just
it's exactly right, and it's nice to hear that you speak to your students like that as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to shake my students a tiny bit and be like, dude, stop complaining about how people play.
Yeah.
Like they're playing like crap, and that means that we can exploit them. So if they are just calling your 10x raises, open 12x. If they're calling your 12x raises, open 15x, and find the spot where you're like heads up. And then start putting in some min raises. Fuck it, you've got pocket fours, start min raising.
Yeah.
And there's just so many cool creative things you can do if you get yourself out of that mindset of like, this is how you're meant to play poker.
Yeah. I had one student so far in my life who brought a hand history and did exactly that. He played, I think it was a heads up player, and we were reviewing heads up sit and goes, and he literally like ace king open raise 5 big blinds, 9-8 suited 2 big blinds, king queen 3 big blinds. And I was like, exactly perfect. He was playing against a big fun player. He didn't care. He called everything, and we went over some post flop stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right thing. So yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do against fun players. And this is always, especially in casinos or very soft environments, man, just play your hand strength. All right,
it's beautiful. And last thing to say on that is that when I'm looking for students to coach, I'm looking for people that do that think creatively and come up with their own weird strategies instead of can just like regurgitate what some person with pure solver said.
Yeah. Or at least are open to it, right? They're really like, hey, okay, I wanna hear Charlie Carrel's input and spice up my game. Not spice up my game, it sounds too fancy, but just getting a different perspective on things that they might have not seen so far. Hey guys, we just launched the Raise Your Edge Academy, where we are going to be teaching you the newest concepts around poker in an exclusive environment. One of the top coaches are going to be Klaas, aka Sig One, our bounty coach, Week Ray, as well as Heal the World, Julian Thomas, top high stakes coaches, which I'm really excited to be working with. I've been working with these guys for almost my entire career, and I've been learning from them a lot, and I'm delighted to be working with those guys together and provide you with the best material in those webinars where you have the chance to ask questions. We're going to have weekly webinars, so 4 webinars a month. You have the chance to sign up just for one webinar. If there's just one topic that really intrigues you, we're going to be announcing the topics of the webinars at the beginning of the month. So you get the chance to choose from whatever webinar you would like to sign up for. And then you also get the chance to watch the recordings. If you sign up on a monthly or yearly basis, you will also get access to all of the recorded webinars. So lots of content and value in there. And I think even for monthly and yearly, you also get the chance to get some ranges. So really excited about this as well. There's nothing you can do wrong because there's going to be a refund period for also the yearly subscription. So if you check it out for 2 weeks and you don't like, you can check out 1 or 2 webinars. You can just get a refund. So very, very easy here. And yeah, really excited to see you guys there. I really do enjoy doing those webinars. And we're going to be working on a very interactive level where you can ask your questions, and either it's going to be Klaas, Julian, or me, or Nico, or maybe in the future other coaches in those webinars that will be hosting and providing you the content. So if you want to know more about it, go in the description. You will find out more information there. And now let's jump right into the content. All right, next couple of hands, we get pocket tens on the button. I didn't expect anything else but flat, but I think it's also fairly standard. I like it. I would do this is a spot that, you know, I have the regulars on my limits that really don't like folding to 3-bets, and then I would go for this is really a player depending hand. But I would say as default, it's a call.
Yeah. Ace 5-3. I think as default against a recreational player here, I would bet to 3-bet, but I think this is a recreational player, so for some reason I decided that I think there's also another recreational player in the big line.
I think he is. Cool. I'm so bad in remembering names, but I think he might be a regular. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, perceived at least.
Yeah. because you have to be careful in these days, when there's a regular, and because sometimes, if there's an unknown to me, I usually would say, hey, there's a recreational, right? And if I would start playing cash games and people don't know me because they don't play tournament, they would probably also tag me as a recreational. I wouldn't take that as an offense. So probably they know me and they think my post flop is shit and they tag me as a recreational. Cool, man. That's it. That's awesome. I honestly, I love to be underestimated. That's so powerful when people are not taking you serious. I love it. Tag me as the biggest dong player in the world. Go on Twitter. I played against Bencb, the biggest dong player in the world. Awesome, great. That just gives you such a big advantage.
I love to be overestimated as well, because in some spots people just start making ludicrous plays against you because they think you're just like the best player in the world, and they start seeing you as this like unbeatable god. And it's like, dude, I'm just fucking, I don't know what's going on as much as you. Come on. But especially in live, I don't know if you've had this, like when I sit down at a table, I'll get like 3 or 4 people if it's like a main event. So I'll be like, oh, damn it, Charlie's here. Yeah. And people start giving me walks in the big blinds. People start folding to my 3-bets. And it's so wild what one image can do. But like you said, the same way, if somebody thinks you're terrible, then you just pull out all the cool stops.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this hand. Oh, thin value bet here. I guess against 4s and deuces and maybe like pocket 8s type of hands.
Yeah, exactly. I think that this person's range, if he's a normal recreational player, will just be a bunch of 4s, deuces, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and then perhaps queens and jacks.
Okay.
And usually just like nothing else in this spot. I think he turned up something I wasn't expecting, but
A6, yeah.
But at least even if he does have something like ace deuce, which I might expect, we don't have to decide on the river.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I would probably just check it down, but
oh man, let me give you a little new perspective on min betting. I've made so much money playing online and min betting. It's against recreational players. It's unholy. The amount of times where you're just like, I'll give you a random hand made out of nowhere, for instance. Okay, let's say we call a 3-bet with pocket 7s. The flop comes big button versus small blind.
Yeah.
Flop comes something along the lines of like 8, 6, deuce. He c-bets, we call, turn 8, min bet. Hear me out here. People, recreational players, they're betting all their pocket aces on the turn. They're betting all their pocket queens, so they almost always just have ace king. This perhaps isn't the best example, but this is an example. When they raise, you just call them down and give them 100 big blinds if they manage to check aces. But when they raise, 8 out of 10 times, this is called the BSTI, the bet small to induce. 8 out of 10 times they just got ace king, they just go mental.
Okay.
And they call the turn, and then you just like, I don't know, value bet whatever you think ace king will call in the river.
Okay, so you're using it to like define his range better, and okay.
Yeah, and then on rivers, doing it as well against recreational players where they have nothing almost always, or you think they might have like 4th pair. You min bet, and they're like, well, I don't want to fold to that, and I definitely can't call it, so they just raise. They just always raise. If you watch any of my streams, the amount of punts that I get from min betting river, we have a meme inside the Twitch chat of the STI. It's so fun.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, it's again like this is a spot where it's gonna be plus even if you make him fold queen jack, right? The queen jack hearts that even though it should probably be in his delay bluffing range, but whatever.
Yeah, you just never know when it's the right.
But honestly, like also delay bluffing is heavily underbluffed. It's insane. If you look into some database, it's crazy. Okay, queen turn off, we fold. Ace queen from under the gun. Oh, 3 spades. Yeah.
Oh, I remember this hand. I'm very curious to hear what you'd think to do in this spot.
Flop pretty standard. Would you like to share your thoughts first, or should I go ahead and?
So this is a spot where on the flop, obviously, I'm using a small size quite often because
makes a lot of sense.
Your bluffs really want to be going a small size because they just have so many like ace 5 of hearts that just have to fold.
Yeah.
Like there's just a ton of combos on, especially on monotone boards, where people just completely miss. So I tend to use small sizes with most of my range on in these kind of spots. If I had if I had the made flush, I'd just go bigger.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to try and exploit fold against me, good luck. And I will say that this spot specifically is very, very underbluffed, but there's a good reason for that. Like if we go triple barrel, it's very, very underbluff if it just breaks out. But there's a good reason for that because it's really, really overcalled.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
I mean, first of all, I think from a theoretical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to just, bet small for the same reasons as you mentioned. That's probably the perfect way to play it. And then, if you want to make some adjustments, take your bigger, better hands and go a little bigger. I mean, even ace queen with ace and spades, we just have such an enormous amount of equity that we probably can size it up, because if we get there, he's still gonna be having so many calling hands with, let's say, king queen, queen and spades, king nine. Like, people really love to level themselves into hero call, where we can just triple barrel ace queen in hearts, or just because he's gonna have so many call fold hands on spade run out. And I feel like a lot of regulars, they know that, and then they start calling down like the queen and spades, jack and spades, if the four spades gets there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's an argument for going bigger for sure. I'd say the counter argument to that would be you don't want him to fold any spade hands at all. You want to give him a price that ace three with three of spades is in there, because you'll get
yeah. No, but I think even against the 4K sizing, they would still call it. So I wouldn't go like 50 or 60. I just maybe like a big blind more or half a big blind more,
Yeah, fair enough. You think ace three with the three of spades would call against 4K? That'd be a wild call.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would call.
I would wager that PSL would not want that.
In theory, it probably starts folding. Yeah, but I'm just saying that I think regulars are ace high. Like we are heading against queen jack, some jack nine type of hands, and
maybe they do.
I don't think it's a good call. I agree with you. I don't think it's a good call, but anyway. So you go for the overbet on the turn. I can't argue with that. I mean, our hand, like we can do whatever we want. Like you can.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I think from a theoretical standpoint, you want to be using more smaller sizings, because again, like even with this, let's say you bet half pot, 10-9 and hearts. There's just so many hands you set him indifferent. That's what I mean. Like big sizing. If he has king 5 and hearts, it's just so painful, because very often, like, the way you need to think about it from big blind's perspective is, what's your equity realization? Because you're mostly going to be doing this with ace queen, ace jack having one spades, and you're going to have so many natural bluffs on the river. It's just for you super easy to find these right frequencies. And then you can't call down with your king 5 and hearts, right? So you have to start folding these probably on the turn with a certain frequency. And it's much better for you to call, let's say, queen 10, queen in spades, than, let's say, king 5 without a spades.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, it's pointless to extend discussion about this turn.
The reason that I went larger on the turn instead of smaller is because I was just going to do two and done. If it bricked out, I was just checking.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those spots, like I mentioned, I think people really underbluff as the under the gun, and I think that people really, especially in big spots, maybe this isn't quite the biggest spot, but if we're in like final 3 tables, final 2 tables, I think people really find excuses to check back the turn with their ace queen, for instance, or like go smaller. But with their like ace 3, ace 4, ace 5 of spades, etc., then they just go bet, overbet, shove every single time.
Yeah.
So I think it's really underbluffed, and they always find their value bets. And I think the big blind in these spots, for some reason, that people just call down.
Yeah.
So my strategy here is to go, okay, I'm going to go big, try and fold him out all of his one pairs, and then just going to be checking the ribs that I break.
Yeah. Wow, that is a crazy turn call by him against that overbet. Like, if you overbet, he just has to fold so much, man. It's like, also having the jack and spades, it's like blocks a lot of your bluffs.
Yeah, like a lot of them, like
He's
ace jack.
he can be drawing that already. Like if you have king, queen, and spades, and even against ace, queen. And it's also the problem is all of your outs. You never ahead against the value range. So if he hits a jack, you jam. He's never going to be ahead against your value hands. Even if he hits his 8, you're never going to be jamming anything. Maybe aces. Maybe you jam aces with the ace and spades, right?
Yeah.
But like you see that even when he improves, he's still hating his life. So this is always an indicator, okay, we should probably be folding our hand. Because A, you want to be ahead against bluffs, but also in case you are behind, you want to improve.
Yeah, no, it's a really wild call.
If you improve to a spade and you face a river jam, you also ace 8, ace and spades, fine. It's like you block some good value hands. If you improve, you have the nuts. But here you can never improve to a hand where you comfortably say, "Oh yes, I improved. Now please bet." No, it's not the case with Jack 8, right? So yeah, I think here and also on the river. Yes, it's 2-pair, but I mean we kind of have to jam hands like Queen Jack, right? But as we have seen earlier, you probably not open Queen Jack off every single time from another gun.
Yeah.
So you're not overbetting with Queen Jack hearts on the turn, so it's like really hard for you to find those bluffs, right?
Yeah,
and then Queen Jack spades.
My bluffs here are like Ace Jack maybe.
Yeah.
But personally, I would have 0 bluffs on the river. I think.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just a spot where people call down way too wide.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think the river call is probably better than his turn. No, actually.
Let's not rinse this guy too hard.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we do this for education, but we really want to show the people, okay, this is not a spot you wanna get involved into. And
just to be clear, I'm sure both you and I have made way worse plays than
yes,
that,
yes, absolutely. This is not about roasting him.
We're not trying to get that guy to feel bad.
So let's move on. Pocket 8s in the small blind. You raise it up against Padilla.
Do you adjust your sizes blind versus blinds, or what kind of strats do you have?
I used to mix around, but I feel like I started using a 3.2x open raising, which I don't want to go with 3x. I feel like with NTs it's a little too cheap, and people still, from what I've found out in my database analysis, that you also guys find in the Turn Masterclass, where I break down how people play on low stakes, mid stakes, and high stakes, that there's still overfolding going on against 3x. So you're supposed to defend, let's say like 70 to 80% of your range, and they only defend 65% of the range.
Yeah.
So like I want to raise between 3x and 3.5x. I still want to, play out of position. And I also don't mind playing out of position from the small. It's just if you look in some blind versus blind spots where they're supposed to be stepping really wide, they're not stepping enough. They give the small blind raise way too much credit. You're not facing a lot of 3-bets. Just my priority playing out of position is trying to realize my equity as much as possible. It's not like about fancy bet sizing. It's just okay. How do I get to the river without investing investing the least amount of money? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And personally, I will have a bunch of spots where I'll be limping loads if I think the person's going to be playing really aggressively. Big blinds, most of the spots, probably like 80%, I'll just be using a raise and fold strategy.
Yeah.
Perhaps limping a few hands that just super exploit.
Yeah.
And then with my raising strategy, I would mix somewhere between 2.5x and 4x, depending on which hand I have and depending who I'm against. So one thing that I tell people to do against recreational players is 2.5x your hands. Like you got Jack deuce off blind versus blind against a recreational player, 2.5x, he's going to be folding his like 8-5 offs, which is disastrous.
Yeah.
And you're going to be printing money with a really small investment. Something like pocket 8s, I don't want to be going 3.7x, which I might sometimes go in this spot because I want him to call those shitty hands that we have crushed.
Yeah.
So I'd really do it depending on the spot.
Yeah. Listen, before we continue, I was thinking, I mean, you're claiming from yourself you're not studying a lot of GTO, and I would approve that you seem a very, very smart person when it comes to poker and you really know what you do. And I'm always trying to explain to people why this is so important. And I think your human node lock, in PyroSolver, if you change an input, it will provide you different result. And that's how it is in poker, right? And I think what you're very, very good at is to understand how a simulation can change or how output can change when people play different strategy. You use different sizings, you reduce your bluffing frequencies, you improve or you extend your bluffing frequencies. And this is so important. I mean, node locking is such a big part of GTO or working with PyroSolver, and it's not being utilized. People just pull up a sim, look at the results, and then they try to apply it. But that's not how it works in the real world, right? And I can see that you're very, very good at making those adjustments, which is crucial. And in real time when you play poker, right? But it's based on your experience because you see different styles, you try out things and then it goes wrong, you make your adjustment and then you try something else and it works and you keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. Then you try something else. And this, in my opinion, is actually real poker. This is what you're supposed to do in the real world with, of course, and this is not, we're not saying you should never study GTO, but you should always try to think for yourself, does it make sense? Is this your opponent's play? Or the way your opponents play, and just having that fundament, that theoretical understanding. But then this is just like the first mini step, and then the next steps are, as Charlie is doing it, and also myself doing it to a certain degree, just trying to go these exploits. This is what Charlie is really, really good at, in my opinion. Like just doing this real-time in-game node locking and running these sims through your head. It's like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, and yeah, I think it's really good way of showcasing how my opinion poker is supposed to be played.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for saying that, and I completely agree with everything you said. I think that people look at a more exploitative or intuitive approach to poker and they assume that it's just random clicking buttons based on whim, and it's not. It's genuine scientific discovery. Like you have data, millions and millions of hands that you play, and you have data analyses that work way quicker than any computer could work. Like the human brain is capable of going so much deeper into these phenomena than a computer can, even though it's less precise about its output. So I personally I very, very much believe in the mathematics of poker and how important it is and how crucial it is to be able to have that embedded intuition of the numbers. Even if you don't crunch the numbers specifically, you get a feel for it. And that's what I think that the human mind is so capable of doing. That's what I like to teach, is instead of teaching people what to think, I teach them how to think, and teach them, they can teach themselves how to think as well. And what you said about PyroSolver is exactly right. And I think a really good analogy is in chess. People played chess in a certain way and it progressed over centuries. Then artificial intelligence comes along and everything changes. People suddenly see that, okay, Stockfish plays like this. And then 10 years later, Google's, what's it called? Deep AlphaZero plays like this. But it would be a disaster if even Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player in the world, tried to play exactly like AlphaZero, because his brain isn't capable of replicating exactly what AlphaZero can do. But what he does do is he takes concepts from AlphaZero and says, okay, I'm going to apply this to my game. He likes to push pawns up both sides of the board pretty often. He likes to do this and tackle the opponent's pieces in jail, and he likes to sacrifice in these kind of spots. I'm going to have that built into my intuition, so then I can apply it to my game instead of saying, I'm going to try and do this. And I think in poker, it's the exact same. If you want to study PyroSolver, study the hell out of it. But remember, that's not how you're meant to play poker. But it can give you some really cool ideas, which I've learned a ton from PyroSolver without even having studying it, just from other people taking lines where I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's really smart. Well done, artificial intelligence. But then there are a ton of lines that just don't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the pocket eights here from the small blind. You open it up, 6-4-5. You check, turn ace and hearts. I guess you check the flop because it's not really necessarily connecting with our raising range from the small blind a ton of the times, but it connects very well with his flatting range.
I actually think it might be a better. I think it's closer than I thought. I think I probably snap checked this or like decided to check really quickly. But
Yeah.
I think there's probably some good arguments for betting as
Yeah.
well.
Of course. I mean, we have an overpair and a gut shot. You bet small. He calls river 7.
Do you ever check the turn then?
I mean, I like the bet. He's still gonna have all the 6-7s, 5-7s, 4-3 suited type of hands. If he has king 10, king and hearts, he's gonna be calling a bet, but not bluffing this combo. Like a lot of strong king highs where he has a bit of shot on value that just gonna take the free shot online. So yeah, I definitely see some merits here. We dictate the price. I don't think we're ever gonna get raised a lot of the
left against an ace as well. I think if he has something like ace deuce on the turn, he's probably betting at least half pot.
Yeah. And river, we value bet. Also like your sizing.
Pray that the image gets us paid off. And
all right, let's move on. King 9 and clubs from the low jack. Let's see. Yep, we open it up. Call from the button. Multi-way. Let's go. We haven't had one single multi-way spot so far. Ace 4-4. What is your... You go ahead and bet.
Yeah, I think I'm almost always checking here, but I think the button was a recreational player if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I believe that I just wasn't going to be getting floated very much. And I don't know if the big blind was a recreational player or not. What's his name?
GM Walter. No, he's a good reg.
Oh, he's a good reg, yeah. So he might be check raising in decent frequency with his like 5-6 hearts and whatnot. But yeah, I thought it was just going to be profitable.
Okay, this is a spot where I think, yeah, I would disagree with you. It's just because combination-wise, we block a ton of hands that we want to make them for, like all the king high clubs. We don't block any good calling hands. Like even if it's king queen and spades, he might continue. We don't block the typical a6 hands he would flat. Like it's so much better to bluff with a hand, let's say like jack 10 or 10-9. Ace king is always 3-betting. So yeah, I like usually we don't have any obvious draws, so we should be picking hands that have good blocker effects. And just mathematically, like blocking king queen and clubs or king jack and clubs, which we're trying to fold out from buttons range, we're not so much concerned about big blind. He's gonna have whiffed this board quite frequently, but like just blocking those folding hands is I don't think we want to pick those hands, even though we choose a very small sizing.
So I think you're obviously right against we're playing a computer. Personally, I think that one of the differences that you and I have in just the way that we think about poker is the value and emphasis that we put on blockers. And I noticed that in the last video as well. That when I'm playing against recreational players, I'm really rarely thinking about blockers because the spots are so high EV in one way or the other. The blockers, they add EV and they take away EV depending on the spot. And it can be significant, but from my experience, it's nowhere near as significant as just knowing how recreational players play and being able to exploit that.
Yeah, I mean, if they start flatting a hand like, king 3 in hearts here, or they have like 8-6 and they have like jack 7 suited, then of course we can go ahead and see bet this board much wider. So this is, of course, where you need to have a good understanding of what type of recreational is he. Is he just, straightforward, tight recreational? Is he more like the loosey-goosey calling station that just, he flats like 40% of his hands here on the button? He might even have like jack 9 off.
Loosey-goosey is now like a solid part of our vocabulary. Thanks.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is where if I see someone plays like 50-20 VPIP PFR or he just is flatting a lot, then I see reasons. But as a baseline, I would not see bet this even with a recreational involved.
Yeah, fair enough. And like I said, like most of the time, 90% of the time I'm checking, but sometimes I just get a feeling that recreational players, like for instance in this spot, I think that they're going to be folding way too much on the flop. Like most recreational players, at least. I didn't have reads on this specific dude, but if they are folding way too much on the flop, then suddenly our C bet just becomes super profitable, like with any two cards.
So the turn is the 9 in diamonds. You decide to call.
Yeah, I don't like it, honestly.
Yeah.
I remember doing this and I tanked on the turn for ages. And I think it was just one of those spots where I convinced myself that he could still have like sevens and just be like betting for protection slash whatever, because he's just a recreational player. But I think he just has so many combos at base X that I
Yeah.
think I'm pretty screwed.
Yeah. I mean, it's sick that he doesn't value bet ace queen there on the river.
I mean, it's counts fit to be fair. It's queen
Huh?
queen doesn't play. But it's the same
Yeah,
turn.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And it opens up the doors for Charlie Carrel, King 9, blocking a lot of boats.
I've got all the boat blockers. Let me punt into a recreational player that's never folding an ace. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the turn call is just stupid, honestly. And I think I was annoyed at myself after that.
Yeah, here we go, the aces. Do you min 3-bet?
Yeah. So let me tell you some really deep, in-depth strategy in poker. Sometimes a very genius player called Charlie Carrel Bencb 77 has really fat fingers and thumbs and accidentally misclicks from the big lines. This is not one of those times, but I'm protecting those times. I probably do this with like a 5% frequency, but every now and again I'll just min 3-bet aces to keep them.
To balance your misclicks?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, this is where I will heavily disagree on, because you're not forcing him to do any mistake. Like basically every hand he has, and if you have, even if you have aces, like he has to call. He's priced in, right? So we're not forcing him to do any mistakes. And whenever we choose a strategy where opponent can never do a mistake by calling his entire range, it's never a good strategy, in my opinion.
I really disagree with that. I really, really disagree, because I think that when you make somebody, let's say it's on the river, and you're min betting the river, knowing that you have the best hand pretty much always, and they call, they're like, well, it's not a mistake because I know that I'm getting the right price with this. And let's say you do it on the flop, or pre-flop in this kind of situation, you're perhaps not making them make a mistake on this street, but you can make them make mistakes on other streets. So I really don't agree with the presupposition that just because they're not making a mistake on that, in like theoretically from a game theory perspective, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad play from our perspective. Now, that I'm not saying it's definitely a good play. It's still a min 3-bet with aces. I'm not, saying it's like
It's not a negative EV play, but we make more EV with 3-betting larger, and this is where I would say it's a mistake, because you could 3-bet even 3x or 3.5x, they're still going to be calling a lot, and we increase our EV significantly. And this is just, you can create the ranges. And I also recently made a YouTube video, guys, if you want to check it out, where I was looking a little bit more into the EVs of doing certain actions. And this is where we are going to be making significantly more EV with, and one of the reasons is, and that's why I just tried to explain it from human logic, is if this guy has ace 4 off, he cannot fold. Even if he knows that you have aces for the most part and you have a few misclicks, he has a position advantage, and he will sometimes hit his trips and then have implied outs. And this is what I mean with he's not doing a mistake by calling Willy wide. And then this, in my opinion, is then another good strategy if we allow him to call Willy wide. Of course, if he's a terrible player and he's going to be doing a lot of mistakes post-flop, yeah, but then he's probably also going to do a lot of mistakes if we 3-bet 3x or 3.5x or even 4x, and he's still going to be doing mistakes against that strategy as well, but we punish him even more. And this is what I'm not saying the min 3-bet is like losing money, or we're not going to make any EV, of course, because it's aces, and we're going to have the best hand for the most part post-flop as well, and we're going to win more money. But I just say we push even more EV, we're going to make even more money by just choosing a larger sizing. This is where I'm 100% sure every single time 3-betting larger is going to make us more EV. This is just a line I would never take.
So personally, I'm going to push back against this pretty hard. Again, I'm not suggesting that people should put this into the game, but to say that you're 100% sure that it's higher EV to 3-bet larger, I think is really misplaced confidence based on how complex the game of poker is. You never know whether the field is, or this specific player is going to react by 4-bet bluffing a ton in this spot. You never know whether he's just going to stack off on an ace high board if he has an ace in his hand, which is rare. You never know what kind of reaction you're going to be getting from these kind of spots. And if he is just going to assume we have aces, then, well, okay, suddenly we've just got a ridiculously profitable 3-bet with ace 10 suited, hands like that. So I don't think it's fair to say, and again, this is like, it feels like I'm kind of like sticking up for a joke, because this is kind of like a joke hand, but I don't think it's fair to say that you can be that certain that you know how people are going to react against this. So just because you're not making a theoretically sound play, it doesn't mean that you're going to be reducing the EV of your play. And this is not something I've played around with enough to have any idea. This is more of genuinely just balancing. But at the same time, there are a ton of plays that I would make that other players would say, that's so theoretically unsound, it has no chance of being profitable. And it's stuff that's just made me a ton of money throughout my career, like the min betting on the river, for instance. So I really would push back against the level of certainty there.
Well, but we also need to have a certain amount of, well, then we could go ahead and say, then let's open 7 deuce off from MP. The game of poker is so complex. What makes us certain that opening 7 deuce off from MP is not a profitable play either? That's
yeah, no, I understand. I understand the argument, and if you took it to an extreme, then you could propose it to be ridiculous. But I don't believe that this is anywhere near the extreme. Like, we have data on opening 7 deuce off from mid position. We have data from opening a bunch of hands from mid position. We know that it's no bueno. We know that we can't make it profitable because we also can't make a ton of other hands profitable, like, I don't know, ace 5 off, for instance. But we don't have a ton of data on this.
I could provide you with data that would probably convince you that aces min 3 betting is going to make us.
Can you provide me with like 10,000 hands where somebody's min 3 bet from the big blinds, and then compare it to 10,000 hands where they've 3.5?
We could run simulations where we would give in proper input of, let's say, the way the hand is supposed to be played post flop. They use a different.
How would you get that input? How would you get the input of how they?
You can run these with Monka solvers, where this is basically how you create preflop ranges, or look in preflop EVs, where the solver assumes a certain output for post flop and then estimates the preflop EV of our actions with 3 betting. Again, this is no problem.
What you're saying is that you know how to put in an input of how this person will react.
I mean, Charlie, this is no, you cannot do this. But then why would you be able to do that with ace 5 off? We can also then assume, okay, people are going to be playing terrible, and then we're not capable of doing the same for pre-flop open raising ranges when our opponents, we cannot consider how they play post flop and we make a ton of money. Then we need to question all our pre-flop ranges.
No, I honestly don't believe that's true. I think that there are a ton of things that we know aren't going to work because people have tried and tested it. There are a ton of things. Like, I got this play off a very, very high stakes player back when I first started watching. And I got a bunch of different fake misclick plays that they did. And it's made me a ton of money throughout my career. Now, I'm not saying that this is definitely going to be higher EV, but I'm saying that you don't know. And this isn't something that we can put into a computer and test. This isn't something that we can be certain about. So the level of certainty that proliferates throughout the poker community about this is definitely bad because theory, I think in some positions is completely well-founded. I think in other positions, in other spots, it's completely misfounded. And I'm arguing that this is one of those spots where it's misfounded.
Well, I would see some truth in it if it's against a recreational, where you might induce something and he does something ridiculous. But Bomba Granata, he's a very experienced high stakes player for many years. He's going to be like, oh, thanks for the great prize. I don't do anything wrong just by calling my 9-8 suited. I'm not losing any EV. It's a good price. I can call, see a flop, and then take it from there and play a hit or fold. And that's not a good strategy for us as the out of position player. So I could argue the same. I could say, okay, do you have data that regulars are punting? Again, if you say, okay, based on experience, you think you make more EV, I can't argue with that. I really can't argue with that. And then you're going to be right for your own style of playing. All I can say is that, and I literally made 1 or 2 weeks ago, I made a video. Of course, it doesn't consider people doing heavy mistakes, but we're playing a 5K and we're also going to be facing some very experienced regulars. And this is a strategy I would not take because I don't know if my opponent is reacting properly to min 3 bets. Something I'm not doing. If you're experienced in that and you did it and you consider that your opponents are doing such crucial mistakes with that strategy, that's the reason why you choose a min 3 bet strategy, then I can't argue with that. Like, then I have to trust you that you make the best decisions for yourself. This is a style I would simply not play because
and again, this isn't a style that I would usually play either. Like I said, this is something that I would argue is if you did it more than every 20 tournaments, people would start playing against you in such a perfect way that it would just be insane.
Yeah.
But I've played a bunch of hands like this where people just 4-bet folds. You know, they take some random hands, like just absolutely loads of hands, and they just end up 4-bet folding a lot. And I have enough data of these kind of spots where intuitively I've gauged that, hey, this is actually working out pretty legit. I'm not burning money by doing this, so I'm going to continue doing this. And so I really appreciate that you've started speaking about how it is for your game instead of how it is for, like, you know, the theory in general, or how people are going to be reacting against it. But personally, I've just had loads of good spots happen from this, and I can't say that it would work in the long run if I kept doing it, but it's led to some really, really nice situations where people have just punted.
Then let's continue for the flop. Queen 3 deuce. You'll go ahead and choose a larger sizing.
Yeah. I think that in this spot, you're either representing a bluff. You're either representing a misclick or you're representing aces. And I think that if somebody just has a queen here or they have pocket eights, they're probably just going to pocket eights will probably just call one, and they'll probably just resort back to near GTO.
Yeah.
And then queen X, I'm just going to try and stack by the river.
All right, we got the next hand, 7-6 and clubs on the button. Yeah, I think that's what you also call a 7-5 suited here on the button against another gun.
This is the conversation. Oh wait, it's not quite the conversation we had last
time.
No,
it's a bit different. Just wondering what hands what like the weakest suited connector you would.
Is it still just hold please in that position?
Sorry.
Who's the opponent? A reg or a
J do where I hear it for the first time. I don't recognize his name.
So I probably would just about call 7-5 suited against a recreational player, and against a reg I'd fold it in the spot. What about you?
Yeah, seems reasonable. King deuce deuce rainbow. He c-bets what? Yeah, he c-bets like 40% ish. Yeah, nothing we can do here, right? All right, let's do one more hand and then we're gonna wrap it up because I have to go to the training in 40 minutes. Pocket threes.
Yeah. By training, do you mean weight training?
No, kickboxing. Actually, today we just do stamina. We're just gonna go for a 10-kilometer run.
Dude, sick.
Pocket threes. You pray for the 3. Not gonna happen. Oh, that gets. Well, that's a big squeeze.
What happened? Oh, we just folded.
Yeah.
Should we look for a good hand to end on?
Yeah, I think we should not be calling here with pocket threes. It's tempting to put in the... I mean, we're quite deep with under the gun.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit of a punt to call there.
Yeah. I just said the big blind is just going to be jamming so many flops, and we're not going to get to see a turn. Like if it's a pot size where stake to pot ratio where he might choose some smaller sizes we can float or whatever, he starts checking and giving up. But even with ace kings, when the flop is 10-5 deuce, he might just pot size jam it. Then we have to fold our pocket threes. So yeah, good fold. Great. Another very interesting discussion here. Once again, guys, I think it's very important to always be very, very open. And listen, like Charlie, I was not trying to attack you. It's just I like to also have certain standards in my game that I say, okay, I believe this is the truth. But again, then I'm saying, okay, if that is your experience, if this works out, I can't argue with that. It's like all I can say is, everyone has to be very honest to themselves if this is something they consider makes them more money in the long run. And it's totally fine that I have a different opinion, and I say for myself, well, I looked into the numbers. I know. Remember, guys, I did a YouTube video 2 weeks ago where I was complaining EVs of exploitative strategies versus GTO strategies, with some adjustments we made on how population really plays. And yeah, we found some very interesting insights on that. So highly recommend that video as well. And this is just something that I would not have in my game. But if you think whatever you do, and also Charlie with the min 3-bet, then it's just very important to be very honest with yourself, and like, okay, if that really works out, if that brings you more money, then great. Like I can't argue with that, Charlie, and I trust you that you make the best decisions for your own game, and that's the most important, right? And
and I would say that thank you, by the way. I would say that I'm still so open to the idea that in my game there are going to be a bunch of things that I'm going to be punting, like a bunch of spots where I'm going to be punting. So it's good to hear pushback to those things. I think that it's important for a new player, if they really want to get going and they really want to start being able to crush not only in the theoretical way but also in the explosive intuitive way, is to just experiment. Like don't try and cap yourself with a specific way of playing. Like, for instance, back in the day, Ben Heath and I, when we were grinding up the stakes, we were intent on finding a 3-bet min race strategy, but from button versus other positions. And we tried to make it work for ages, and we just couldn't make it work. So we stopped doing it. Mm-hmm. And there are a bunch of other things that we tried making work. One of which we were, I think, near the pioneers of overbet c-betting, because nobody used to do it back then. But that was, again, one of the strategies that were like, well, why not just do that? Why not just overbet c-bet?
Yeah.
And
then it turned out to be even strategically found, right?
It was the first thing that Ben Heath said to me when he first started studying PioSolver, and now he's fucking amazing at it. Is that he was like, dude, PioSolver does so much of the shit that you do already. Like, nice.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually true. So a lot of these crazy strategies, I remember even donk betting flops or donk leading turns. It's like, if I think back like 7 years ago, it's like almost nobody, maybe some wizards in their basements, they already started doing it, but it was not a common strategy, and it was even frowned upon, right? Like, oh my god, like, why would you donk? You should not do this. The prefab aggressor has the right to do the betting, and you wait until the prefab aggressor does his actions. Like,
they're like, haven't you heard of a c-bet?
Yeah. So, and even donk leading turns, it's just not really a thing. And so
yeah, I got a lot of flack for that in the last 5 or 6 years of my career. I've been caught a fish by almost all of the high stakes regs for various plays, and if it makes money, then just keep doing it.
Yeah, great, Charlie. Thank you once again. Looking forward to part 3.
That's super fun.
Got a couple more parts are coming, and it's interesting. I'm really looking forward, and I think you guys are gonna like it as well. And if you have something to share, keep in mind if something you probably won't agree with what I said. Always, keep it nice, keep it respectful. If there's something that you don't agree with what Charlie said or the way he plays, keep it nice, keep it respectful. If you come to just, shit around, guys, I come with a hammer and I kick you the fuck out of here, and there's no room, no space for negativity, toxicity. You can always share your criticism, but do it in a nice, kind way. This is not the place to unload your garbage onto us, but you can always share your disagreement with us. Keep the tone nice. If you have any questions or ideas, feel free to drop it in the comments. And then excited for part 3. More is to come. Guys, see you next time. Once again, thank you, Charlie, for joining us. See you guys.